Hey there, this is Pat Ennis of Ennis Legacy Partners. Welcome to the Exit Readiness Podcast. I'm here with co-host Walter Dial. Our mission here on this podcast is to provide you, the business owner, with subject matter expertise on topics pertaining to building transferable or sellable business value, and then for planning your eventual exit from the business. We want to help you build a business that's transferable and then exit successfully on your own terms and conditions. Merging or acquiring a business often involves complex people strategy challenges. We've talked about them often on this podcast through the years that can determine the overall success or failure of a deal. Challenges that can stem from integrating workforces, aligning cultures, managing human dynamics and uncertainty. Research indicates that human capital issues contribute to a significant portion of the M&A failures. They often go sideways for these reasons. With integration problems alone accounting for over 60% of unsuccessful deals. So in this episode, we want to help you understand some of these key challenges and provide some ideas and solutions for getting out ahead of this. So this doesn't happen to you if indeed you have a third-party transaction and there's an integration that's going to happen of teams. We want to help you today to identify some of the key challenge areas, but then to provide a few next steps for you to get out ahead of it and plan for it. And so that's the topic for today, people strategy for M&A due diligence and integration. Our guest is Rachel Platt. Rachel brings 20 plus years of experience helping organizations and individuals achieve enduring success through strategic human resource leadership. She has a reputation and a track record of developing pragmatic solutions to meet these complex organizational and people strategy challenges. Rachel founded PLATTinum, spelled with two T's, by the way, PLATTinum Consulting in 2018 to guide leaders in creating people strategy initiatives in some of these key areas, among others. There's a big list, but here are some of the key areas: employee engagement, leadership development, culture assessment and improvement, HR process improvement, inclusion and coaching. Um, as a certified women's business enterprise, PLATTinum serves small and medium-sized nonprofits and commercial businesses across the U.S. They partner with these clients who share their values, by the way, and to maintain a transparent and ongoing dialogue, which we get excited about because we're all about exposing reality. So she is too. She works with clients to do that, and they do it. We like this piece too, placing outcomes before egos. So, Rachel, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you both so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Hey Rachel, I'll go ahead and kick us off. So it was interesting. I was watching CNBC yesterday, I guess in the evening, and they were talking about Apple, and they were kind of lamenting that Apple's kind of fallen behind in the AI race and kind of wondering what that means for their stock. And they had an Apple expert on. And it was interesting because one of the commentators asked him, they said, well, it just seems like Apple needs to go out there and acquire, one of these AI startup type companies. And the Apple expert's response was, well, Apple doesn't do acquisitions very well because if they try to get one of these AI startup guys, they're usually, they're not your typical suit and tie guy, or they're just not the corporate type. And he said Apple gets these guys when they acquire these companies, immediately these people become Apple employees and they hate it. And he used the acquisition of Beats as an example with Dr. Dre or whatever the guy's name was. He said, he just couldn't stand it. So at some point, I think it'll be interesting to get your take on just kind of that in general. But let me start by asking you, you've been doing this forever. And I would imagine, I know when I would have an initial client meeting, I'd always have things in the back of my mind that I'm looking for. So it must be the same with you when you have an initial client meeting with an executive team. So what are some of the kind of things you're looking for in that initial meeting?
It's not what people normally think. When you're talking about a merger or an acquisition, there's typically a lot of data that, depending on where you are in the process and where someone like me, from a people strategist perspective, gets brought in. Because normally, like the deal guys, some lawyers, some bankers, some accountants are already involved in the process, but so there's some data that is available. But the things that I start looking for, it's not what's in the data room. It's not only the org charts and the policy manuals and people's salaries. Like, that data is critical and important, but we're really trying to look under the hood. Where are the skeletons hidden here? Who has unofficial authority? How do decisions get made? Who's involved in those decisions? Often, in a lot of these, to use your example from earlier, some of these startup AI companies or tech companies, they're known for having cultures about breaking things. Let's figure it out. Let's come up with the next great thing. And that's fine if you understand that and you truly can figure out a way to incorporate that culture and style into the acquirer's culture and style. So we're really trying to spend the time at first looking for honesty and clarity around the roles, the decisions, how things are communicated, that goes beyond what might be documented. That's where we start all the time, because that's where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah. So honesty and clarity. Okay. Honesty would be what we would consider to be a value, a core value. And so, when we talk to transaction folks and they've done what they think to be a great transaction, and then everybody seems to be happy, but then within a year, everyone's not happy. Um, and it kind of goes sideways during the integration period. And oftentimes it seems like what's referred to that wasn't as aligned as what everyone thought was in alignment were the core values, it, such as honesty. And so, can you speak to that on whatever level in regard to the importance of understanding core values on both sides of the table, um, as you're during due diligence and negotiations?
So, in my experience, the majority, I have met a few real jerks who are not honest, but the majority of people, they're not being dishonest. They're not even lying by omission. Nobody actually ever asks the questions. And that's where the benefit of having a people strategist, your HR team, an external HR expert really makes a difference, because they're going to dig in and ask some of the questions like, who's exempt from the rules? Who do we know is going to break all of the rules and we're going to be okay with it? What agreements aren't actually documented? They're like, if they're even written, they're kind of written on the back of a napkin. Who made a promise to someone about how we were going to handle a situation, what rewards maybe they were going to be given, what a future promotion may look like? All of those things were never actually documented. And so the person wasn't dishonest, it wasn't top of mind. They weren't the questions that they were being asked. And a year later, a year down the road, whatever time period, what's happening is that you're finding that when you when you peel it back a little bit, we're a lot more complex than just what can be put in a spreadsheet. And so really taking the time, not just, after the owners have had dinner for the fourth time and they're on their third drink and everybody's, you know, playing golf and having a good time and being like, yeah, this looks great in the financials. It's really spending some time talking to people. It is seeing what the real world actually looks like. It's taking the time to do some stakeholder interviews to discuss what that informal influence looks like. It's really looking and hearing from people about what communications have happened broadly, whether they were written or in person, how things were shared with employees, how communication channels work in particular organizations. Those are all of the things that get to honesty. So when I say honesty, I do mean true honesty and the values as you're talking about, but I also very much mean, um, have we dug deep enough to understand um, how things actually happen here?
Yeah. So here's one more follow up on core values, because we just see it as so foundational and critical to everything, to everything we do, and getting everybody prepared for a successful transition, but then also in regard to integration. And what we've seen in regard to core values is there can be a list on the website of core values, and maybe the acquirer has their list, and the business being acquired has their list, and they share their list and they say, oh yeah, okay, we align. But what we have found is that oftentimes the core values, actually most of the businesses we work with are founder-led businesses, with maybe a small management team. The core values that are listed on the website aren't always the actual functional operational core values that really are driving decision making. And so they're honest, it maybe, and they share their list, and this is who we are. But they haven't done what you just said, Rachel, in regard to really digging down and exposing reality that, oh, you know what, though? Really, our core values are this. I get really upset when my uh, employees aren't responsive quickly, but that's not listed on our website as a core value. So do you follow? Clearly you're
I
shaking your head.
follow exactly.
Okay.
There are, without even you asking the question, I see this all the time, and it really falls into a couple of different areas. One is that for some organizations, their core values, they're completely aspirational. It's not reality of what their employees experience every single day. And that's a huge issue for a buyer. In addition to that, and I just had this with two organizations, they were using the exact same words, but they meant different things. And so, like, we're all speaking English. We are all saying the same things, but how they defined integrity was not like, neither of them were using the Webster's definition of integrity. They both had created what integrity meant to them. And neither answer was wrong, but they just weren't the same. And so when one group of people was talking about what integrity looks like, and they were using the word integrity, the other people were not hearing it in the same way. And this actually had something to do with AI, and how they were using AI. And they kept throwing out, this is part of our value system, the integrity of our knowledge, the integrity of the information that we're putting out. And the other organization, their definition of integrity didn't, again, neither of them were wrong. They just weren't the same and they never discussed it. And it wasn't until we were able to sit down with them, because this had really mushroomed into a much larger philosophical issue of how they were going to do work, deliver work to their clients. We really had to sit down and define integrity and come up with a new definition of it. It wasn't just taking the words on the wall or the words on their website. We really needed to, like, get down and dirty, roll up our sleeves, and get people's buy-in for what integrity was going to mean for the new combined organization going forward, and getting people to step away from how they had been using it in the past and what it meant to them, and coming up with something new. And that's something that many organizations, the smartest and best organizations, really take the time during integration. I mean, integration is, can be years, but they really take the time to not just take yours or mine, but to make it better for the organization going
Mhm.
forward.
Mhm. Yep. Okay. So, listeners, this is a key insight, and we believe it's highly important, not just for integration, but for any kind of transaction you're going to do in transitioning, um, and particularly, or I'll just make a note, Walter. I'd be interested in hearing what you think about this, but with an earnout, because in earnout situations, the founder or the owner is going to be an employee or a partner for some period of time. And oftentimes they don't last, or maybe not oftentimes, but many times they don't last. And a big reason they don't last is because they learn that their integrity meant something different than the acquirer's integrity, and or some other core value, and they just can't stick around for it. And we've seen that over and over. So this is a key insight, listeners. Walter, you have any thoughts about any of this piece before we transition to clarity?
Yeah, I agree. It's really, really important. And what I'm wondering is, I mean, Rachel, do you, when you go into a company, do you, I like the word you use that for some companies, their core values are aspirational at the time. And that's not, it's, I don't look at that as like a huge negative. It's great that they're, aspiring to them. But do you have methods where you're like, okay, this is one of your core values? Do you look at like their processes and see if there's a process that would lead to that core value being realized, or do you do employee interviews? Because I could think you're talking to a top guy and he's like, well, one of our core values is that our staff takes ownership of client relationships or something. But you'd really have to talk to a staff person to see if that's really happening or not.
Absolutely. I mean, we try to do stakeholder interviews, and by stakeholders, those are employees down to the lowest level. Also, they are a key part of this. So we try to do focus groups, we try to do interviews, we look at previous employee surveys if they exist, we try to conduct new surveys, pulse surveys. We try to get the information from the people who are impacted by it daily. I will tell you that sometimes there are leaders who don't want to hear that what they have put on the wall is not, people think it's a bunch of bunk. Let's just use that term for today if we can. Um, and that can be very difficult for a founder, um, particularly when often I see what comes back is founder, owner, or particular members of the leadership team really talk all the time about X core value, but they're the worst offender of it. They want everyone else to do it, but not them. Um, it happens. But I really believe, excuse me, for a two organizations that are coming together, the current owner the acquirer, all of them want it to be successful. They really do. And so it's not about good or bad, right or wrong. It's about having the information and making plans, communication plans, remediation plans, or frankly, making the decision that we're not dealing with this problem right now. All of those are choices. And by having the data in order to make the business decision, you are in a better situation than you were when you just had your head buried in the sand and you weren't paying attention to it.
Yeah, that's exactly. Pat always talks about exposing reality. And I think of it oftentimes like we do this financial gap analysis where you try to determine, you know, the, in this case, let's just say the person who's selling the company, they need a certain amount of financial resources to have a successful retirement. And we do an analysis to say, okay, well, this is what you need, this is what you have. And it's not, it's not to judge them or anything, but it's like, if once you have that information, you're empowered. If you don't have that information, you're lost. And that's the same thing I think you're saying. It's not a matter of um, criticizing them. It's exposing reality. And once that's exposed, they are in such a better position to help guarantee success of any type of transaction.
Yeah, we'll know what needs to be done or what doesn't need to be done. Okay, so core values, we all agree, foundational, need clarity there, right? And we don't need to keep. I don't need to beat the dead horse, as Corby would say. Uh, let's talk about some other kind of common people strategy HR mistakes that you've run up on uh, that can derail a successful integration. Anything beyond what we've talked about? I'm sure there's at least one or two things you can mention.
There's probably one or two. I mean, it's all about communication. Let's just start there. Transparent communications about what will change, what will stay, why those decisions are being made, um, getting the right people involved, your champions that can be involved from the outset, that can help to spread the message, can help to be adding information about timelines. It's so important to say if you don't know the answer or you can't give that answer yet, that's where the biggest mistakes come from, because people's trust erodes in the absence of information. People make stuff up. That's human behavior, and human behavior also, unfortunately, tends to go towards the negative. There's many more news articles about deals that have gone, you call them going sideways, I call them going belly up. Really not great situations. And employees hear about those, and they don't hear about all the ones that went well. And so they tend towards the negative, and when they don't have information that is making them feel confident, secure, or at least in the loop about when they may know more information, they're going to vote with their feet. Whether that means that they leave the organization, they disengage, they are just running scared and working scared, and so they're keeping their head down. All of those things are really detrimental to an integration. And so knowing that integration success relies on the human beings, taking the time to have a thorough, detailed, formal communication plan, informal communication strategy, utilizing all of your available resources is, if you do not do that, you are walking yourself into an uphill challenge.
Okay, so that all that of course makes sense. Let's talk about the timing of that, uh, because oftentimes it's wise for a seller not to inform their employees of the sale until the sale's actually been ratified. Uh, it, however, they should already, would you say this? Is this fair to say? They should already have a plan, like you just outlined there a second ago, ready to execute day one of the actual transfer of the business to or sale of the business, so that they can begin day one communicating the way you just outlined a second ago with the employees. Or when is the time? What's the time?
So I have been part of several deals where people really were waiting until the day, 2 days before the deal was signed, to bring, key leaders, key influencers in the organization into the tent, as we like to say. Um, in my experience, the ones that are more successful are the deals where the owner has a core group of leaders that they have built relationships and trust with over time, that this is not new to them, that they have been, part of this process maybe for years in their, exit planning strategy, so that things are, roles and responsibilities are documented, golden handcuffs if appropriate, deals are in place with key employees, communication plans are more than ready. You've had almost like a little bit of a drip campaign of, hey, we're thinking about this. This is why we would be thinking about this. This is what we are looking for. Those are the most successful. In I understand and realize that that cannot happen in every situation, but wherever it could, you taking the months, at a minimum months, but even weeks beforehand, to bring a few core people inside so that they can help you think through all of the details, and all of the nuances and the timing and the scheduling and the messaging, and then the repeat messaging, because I, it needs to be repeated like 30 times. Nobody hears it the first time. And you can really think about all of those things in a thoughtful, deliberate way. It makes a world of difference. The other
Yeah.
thing that I would,
Yeah, and so we would agree with you in regard to the small group, the executive team, if you will. In most
yeah,
cases, those folks are going to need to be a part of the whole process, because there's going to be due diligence, and they're going to, at least the CFO, if there is one, or someone like that's going to have to be involved with helping to provide information.
Pat, I was just going to ask if you all have seen, because I've seen lots of cases where it became abundantly clear that people on the executive team may not be having roles going forward. But if you put those deals in place beforehand and you communicate it beforehand and give the people who helped you build this business so that it was in a saleable place, if you give them the opportunity to treat them with the respect that they deserve and give them the opportunity to both serve the organization while they're thinking about, what their next move is, most of the time, those people are going to meet or exceed what your expectations are because you've treated them with a level of decency. Like, being a good human in most cases actually makes I keep saying it makes an enormous difference, even if the result is you're not going to have a job yet.
Yeah, no, again, we agree. Would not at all disagree with that. Let's say it works that way. The founder and their small executive team. They've been working toward this day for years as a team. What I'm getting at is the communication to the employee group at large in regard to, the integration that you outlined a few minutes ago. They need to have that plan, and they don't want to be developing that plan after the transaction, I guess is what I'm getting at. Is that right?
Correct, 100%. Because at the end of the day, I don't know if you know this expression, at the end of the day, it's all with them. What's in it for me? And so if you cannot tell someone that both in big picture and personally within the first day, you've lost. You have lost your ability to, I'm not saying you can't build it back, but then you have to work to build it back as opposed to walking in, you know, arms locked together with people trusting and believing in you. Anytime that you wait to have those conversations means that you are diminishing your team's trust in you.
Yeah, and I think the more uncertainty there is, then you have the rumor mill going and everything else, and it's just kind of a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Right.
speak like someone who's been down this path before. Just kind of a nightmare.
Yeah. We've witnessed a couple. Uh, okay, so this time's flown. My goodness, and it's been fantastic. Not a few key insights in here. Let us ask you one more question as we wrap up here. Rachel, what's we like to, when possible, give listeners three things they can do. Um, what's something, three things owners could do right now to help ensure a successful integration after their successful transaction that we're working real hard for them to make sure happens?
It's a great question. My top three,
Yeah, your top
um,
three. You're the one we're
my
talking
top
to
three,
today.
identify and protect your culture carriers. What do I
Mhm.
mean by that? Every organization has unofficial influencers within the organization. They can be at any level.
Yeah,
They're the people that others look to for
mhm.
cues. Figure out who those people are, engage them as early as possible, ask for their input, keep them informed. It's number one. Number two, work on that communication plan. It's who's going to be communicating things. Um, Create some of the consistent language that resonates with your people and also with the other firm that you may be merging with, and being very crystal clear on what's changing, what's staying the same, what the timelines are, what you don't know right now, but you will take ownership to get back to people, and defining for each individual with them what's in it for them. So it's that communication plan. And then being really honest about the gaps and the overlaps. Um, there's turf wars that happen. There's often redundancies. There's role confusion, and all of that just really can erode morale, retention. So showing and demonstrating where you have truly done a roles and responsibilities mapping, you know, thinking about either a RACI or a DACI model for certain core processes. Those are the things, those are the three things that you can do right now in advance, either because there is a transaction looming, or you do it within your own organization so that you are crystal clear and can start fixing some of those gaps before you get to a transaction.
Excellent. Okay, fantastic. Okay, Rachel, Anything as we wrap up? Anything you want to promote today? And do you want to provide your contact information?
Happy to provide my contact information. People can find me on LinkedIn, Rachel Platt. My website is platinumconsulting.com. That is, as you mentioned earlier, platinum with two T's, like my last name. And would be happy to chat with any of your listeners, give some more details or ideas, suggestions for people who are or are thinking about going through a transaction. Nothing to promote, haven't written a book, but I do want to promote being like planning ahead and being a good human. Um, how you exit your business matters almost as much as how you started your business. So think about what you want your legacy to be. Think about how you want your employees to remember their time that you all spent together, and be a good human.
Yeah, you're speaking our language, right, Walter? I think that listeners have heard that plan ahead message before, if they've listened to us before. And we are all about legacy. And yeah, you're right. There's a lot at stake when someone is transitioning. It's huge. And you can't, we believe you should start planning for that as you start the business. But well, listener, Rachel, thank you. Fantastic. And listeners, if you want help in maximizing the value of your business or planning for that eventual exit, you're going to exit, 100% sure of that. You can contact us at Ennis Legacy Partners through our website at nslp.com or exitreadiness.com. Either of those work. Thanks for listening. We're very grateful that you continue to tune in. If you've benefited from today's episode with Rachel, which we know you have, please consider liking it and sharing it on social media. Until next time on the Exit Readiness Podcast, this is Pat Ennis and Walter Dial signing off.